of Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course MMPC-012 titled Strategic Management for MBA Program. Presenting Block 2 titled Environmental Analysis, Unit 6, Internal Environmental Analysis.
Objectives. After reading this unit, you should be able to understand the concept of internal analysis and its contribution to strategy formulation. Understand concept of core competence and guidelines to assess what resources and abilities constitute core competency of an organization. Examine types of the resources which organizations possess and their strategic importance. Understand the concept of value chain framework. Assess SWOT analysis. Introduction. In previous unit in this block, you have learned how the ever-changing nature of external environment, both at macro and micro level, affect an organization's business. The changes in the environment may create opportunities which the organization try to exploit or may bring threats for the organizations which the latter tries to control or neutralize. However, in order to develop successful strategies to exploit such opportunities or control the threats, analysis of an organization's capabilities is important for strategy making, which aims at producing the good fit between a nation's resource capability and its external situation. Internal analysis helps us understand the organizational capability which influences the evolution of successful strategies. Many of the issues of strategic development are concerned with changing strategic capability better to fit a changing environment. However, looking at strategic development from a different perspective, that is stretching and exploiting the organization's capability to create opportunities, it again becomes important to understand these capabilities. The above two perspectives together are called the resource-based view (RBV) of strategy. Professionals from different organizations suggest that an organization's overall strengths and weaknesses and its ability to execute are often found more important to its performance than environmental factors. Internal capabilities and process execution at times allow organizations to gain competitive edge over competitors even with relatively lesser resources and lesser advantageous position. In this unit, we will also discuss the concept of value chain and have a brief understanding of SWOT analysis. Resource-based view. Resource-based view (RBV) model was proposed around the end of 20th century. This model particularly focuses on the organizational resources. Initially, the model emphasized on the physical as well as human resources and the organizational capabilities to use these resources to either develop unique products and services or capture new markets. Subsequent developments of this model highlight the significance on tacit knowledge which an organization may possess. Tacit knowledge is the kind of knowledge which is usually hidden among the members of the organization. In other words, it is a form of the knowledge about which the members of the organizations are unaware or unconscious. Tacit knowledge can be of immense importance to the organization as it can be a resource which is unique and may be difficult to imitate by the competitors. RBV model is centered on the concept of resources as the key to superior organizational performances. The managers are required to make strategic decisions based on the resources and capabilities. RBV model adopts the internal perception to explain how an organization's unique internal resources and capabilities serve as a basis for earning above average returns and thereby gaining competitive advantage over their competitors. Therefore, the model uses internal resources and capabilities to develop core competencies as a response to external environment. Resources and capabilities are the driving forces for strategies which are formulated as a measure to cope with the forces of external environment. As RBV model gives immense importance to resources, therefore it is essential to learn about resources and their essential features for a better understanding of this model. A resource is something which an organization owns, is accessible, or can be developed to formulate and execute strategies for improving effectiveness and efficiency. Resource can include tangible assets, intangible assets, core competencies, capabilities, organizational processes, technical know-how and knowledge. Under RBV model, a resource should be heterogeneous and immobile. Heterogeneity implies that the acquired resource should be different from what other organizations have in the industry. On the other hand, immobility implies that the resources are not easy to transfer to various organizations. Types of resources. There are 3 types of resources: assets, capabilities, and competencies, which have been identified under resource-based view of the organization RBV. Strategic thinkers explaining the RBV suggest that the organizations are collections of tangible and intangible assets combined with capabilities to use those assets. These help organizations develop understanding these 3 types of resources and help us to know how an organization's internal strengths and weaknesses affect its ability to compete. Assets. The factors of production used by organizations in providing its customers with valuable goods and services are called assets. These assets are of 2 types: tangible asset and intangible assets. Any physical means an organization uses to provide value to its customers are its tangible assets. Similarly, intangible assets are equally valuable for organizations, but their physical presence cannot be felt or seen. For example, a brand name is a very important resource for any organization, even though it is intangible. Capabilities. In order to take full advantage of its assets, the organization needs to develop skills, as experience suggests that with similar assets, 2 different organizations may add value of different amount for themselves. This difference can only be explained by the differences in the capabilities in utilizing these assets. For example, in a sector like management education, you will find institutions more or less with similar resources and infrastructure. However, the quality of their output in terms of new professionals for business may be starkly different for different institutions. This is greatly reflected in the type of organizations that pick them up for employment and the kind of job responsibilities they are offered. This difference in output can be explained on account of the skills which these institutions carry with themselves. This position has been found true in case of many Indian organizations as well as the multinational corporations. Competencies. Most simply put, it refers to the ability to perform. Experts from field of strategy, using the term distinctive competencies, refer to the critical bundle of skills that an organization can draw on to distinguish itself from competitors. However, in order to have a better understanding of the concept, you need to understand first the resources which are available to an organization and how they differentiate themselves as competencies or core competencies. Strategic importance of resources. Available resources. These are those resources that are basic to the capability of any organization, which can be listed broadly as physical resource. These can be buildings, machinery, or operational capacity. However, the specific condition and capability of each resource determines their usefulness. Human resources. Traditionally or in today's knowledge economy, both people are considered as the most valuable asset of an organization. Knowledge and skill of people together prove to be a great asset. Financial resources. These can be capital, cash, debtors, and creditors, and providers of money. Intellectual capital. These are intangible resources which include the knowledge that has been captured in patents, brands, business systems, and relationships with associates. In knowledge economy, intellectual capital is considered as a major asset of many organizations. Threshold resources. Organizations need a set of threshold resources to perform in any market, and there is a continuous need to improve such resources to stay in business. This becomes inevitable because of the competitors and sometimes the new entrants We can think of many industries in India like automobile, durable goods, telecom, etc., which with the foreign players had to acquire new sets of resources as their threshold resources to survive. Unique resources. Unique resources as defined in strategy texts are those resources which critically underpin competitive advantage. Their ability to provide value in product is better than competitors' resources and is difficult to imitate. Just think of a big music stores like M-Inc. or the ones from different groups. The scale and range of collection of music provides uniqueness to these stores as compared to any of the traditional music shop. Some organizations have patented products or services that give them advantage for some service organizations. Unique resources may be particularly the people working in that organization. Core competencies. We learned that competencies refers to the ability to perform. The difference in performance between organizations in the same market is rarely explainable by differences in the resource base, since resources can usually be imitated or traded. Superior performance is actually determined by the way in which resources are deployed to create competencies in the organization's activities. An organization needs to achieve a threshold level of competence in all of the activities and processes. Core competencies are activities or processes that critically underpin an organization's competitive advantage. They create and sustain ability to meet the critical success factors of particular customer groups better than other and provide ways that are difficult to imitate. Now the question arises as to how to assess what constitutes a valuable asset, capability or competence. This can be done by testing for scarcity, inimitability, durability and superiority. Scarcity. This is a very basic test to understand its resource value. Just in case any resource is widely available, then it is not likely to be a source of competitive advantage. A resource that is easy to imitate is of little competitive advantage because it will be widely available for a variety of sources. Example, services, designs, etc. Inimitability, however, does not last long and at some point of time, competition matches or even betters any offering. However, organizations should make an effort which may temporarily limit limitations. Physical uniqueness, casual ambiguity, or scale deterrence are few ways how organizations attempt doing this. Durability. Hyper-competitive market conditions have a tendency to make competitive advantage less and less sustainable. Durability in such situations becomes a more stringent test for valuing resources, capabilities, and competencies. Superiority. Competencies are valuable only if they manifest themselves as competitive advantages, and this means that they are superior to those held by rivals. Being good is not enough, and an organization must be better than its competitor. The above points lead to determining how an organization uses internal resources which might be linked to producing a competitive advantage and the resource which actually fit in so as to produce a competitive advantage. To be heterogeneous and immobile, a resource should have 4 traits, collectively referred to as VRIO framework. These are valuable, rare, inimitable, organize. Now let us discuss these in detail below. Valuable. A resource is considered to be valuable if it is either has a cost advantage or provides any differential advantage. For instance, any innovative process of producing a product reduces the overall cost of production, and then such a process will be considered as a valuable resource. Moreover, if a technology is used to create different and unique feature in a product or service, then such a technology will also be considered as a valuable resource. Rare. A resource is considered to be rare if it is distinctive and unique in nature. A resource which is owned by several other organizations in the same industry will not be a rare strategic resource. Rather, it will be considered as a threshold resource. For a resource to be unique, it should be exclusive to the organization. For example, an organization making product based on a specific metal ore, which are very scarce in the world, will be a rare resource. Inimitable. A resource is considered to be inimitable if it is difficult for others to imitate or acquire. This can be possible if the resource is expensive to copy, requires specific knowledge to operate, or has been built or developed over a considerable time period. For example, a production machine built by an organization by investing huge cost and time will be considered to be an inimitable resource. Organize. A valuable, inimitable, or rare resource can only be useful for the organization only if the organization knows how to exploit or utilize it for its own advantage. Therefore, organizing a resource properly is important for gaining strategic advantage. An organization cannot acquire, use, or control its resources effectively unless it is properly organized. This is true even for businesses with valuable, rare, and imperfectly inimitable resource and imperfectly imitable resources. A resource cannot be used to build a lasting competitive advantage if it lacks structure. The resource-based view model indicates that competitive advantage will be achieved by ensuring that resources are developed as per VRIO framework and used to develop strategic response to external environment demands. Frameworks for identifying what to assess. We will now discuss different frameworks to assess the strengths and weaknesses of the organizations. Managers commonly use two frameworks to guide the analysis of organizations' strengths and weaknesses: critical success factors, CSF, and the value chain analysis. The critical success factor. Critical success factors, CSFs, are those which contribute to organization's success in a competitive environment, and therefore the organization needs to improve on them since poor results may lead to declining performance. Organizations, depending on the environment they operate in and their own internal conditions, can identify relevant critical success factors. However, literature on strategy suggests few general sources of critical success factors that have been identified based on empirical research. They are as follows. Industry characteristics. Industry-specific critical success factors are factors critical for the performance of an industry. For example, in hospitality industry, excellent and customized service, wide presence, and an excellent booking and reservation system is critical. Similarly, for airline industry, fuel efficiency, load factors, and an excellent reservation system are critical. Competitive position. Critical success factors for an organization may also be determined by its relative position with respect to its competitors. In some instances, industry is dominated by few large players and their actions leads to determining the critical success factors for the industry which smaller players have to ensure for their success. For example, for the pathological laboratory centers, earlier the CSF was authentic, hygienic, and scientific testing facilities until few big players added service features like door-to-door sample collection or home delivery of reports. Very soon, approachability and ease became the additional CSFs for the player. General environment viewed from any of the dimensions may determine the CSFs. Most simply put, in years of drought, availability of water is at premium, and having access to a assured source of water can become the critical success factor for many industries like tanneries, etc. For the same industry, considering environmental norms, adhering to anti-pollution standards becomes critical success factors. On many occasions, developments within the organizations force internal considerations to become temporary critical success factors. The value chain framework. This is the other framework most commonly used to guide analysis of any organization's strengths and weaknesses. In this framework, any business is seen as a number of linked activities, each producing value for the customer. By creating additional value, the organization may charge more or is able to deliver same value at a lower cost, either of this leading to a higher profit margin. This ultimately adds to the organization's financial performance. The value chain framework is a typical value chain within an organization. Using this framework, it is possible to analyze the organization's contributions of individuals' activities in a business and how they add up to the overall level of customer value the organization produces. It is divided into two parts, that is, primary activities and support activities. The primary activities constitute of the following. Inbound logistics. They are the activities concerned with receiving, storing, and distributing the inputs to the product or service. They include materials, handling, stock control, transport, etc. Operations. They transform various inputs to the final product or service like manufacturing, packaging, assembly, testing, etc. Outbound logistics. They collect, store, and distribute the product to customers. For tangible products, this would be warehousing, materials handling, transportation, etc. In the case of services, they may be more concerned with arrangements for bringing customers to the service if it is a fixed location. Example, entertainment show. Marketing and sale. It makes consumers, users aware of the product or service so that they are able to purchase it. This includes sales, administration, advertising, selling, and so on. A service activity helps improving the effectiveness or efficiency of primary activities. Each of the group of primary activities is linked to support activities, which are as follows. Procurement. This is a process for acquiring the various resource inputs to the primary activities, and this is present in many parts of the organization. Technology development. There are key technologies attached to different activities which may be directly linked with the product or with processes or with resource inputs. Human resource management. This is an area involved with recruiting, managing, training, developing, and rewarding people within the organization. This categorization of the activities as primary or support may be found true for organizations in general. However, it is always better to have one's own judgment in identifying activities for particular organizations in consideration. Select guiding points for evaluating support activities. Organization infrastructure, coordination and integration, level of information system, quality of planning system, timely and accurate information on environment. Human resource management, effectiveness of recruitment, training procedures, appropriateness of reward systems, relationship with trade unions, level of employee motivation and job satisfaction. Technology development, success of R&D environment, quality of laboratories and other facilities, ability of work environment, qualification and experience of technical hands. Procurement, sources of raw material, time, cost, quality, procedures for procurement, relationships with reliable suppliers. With the indicative guiding points, you must have realized how, with the value chain framework, organizations can use these indicators as a reference point in order to improve its overall ability to create value. Miller suggests that the value chain framework can also be useful in a broader sense while deciding in what and where to specialize in the value activities from product design to the delivery of the final product or service to the final consumer. The Balanced Scorecard. This concept offers a well-rounded evaluation that views the organization from different complementary perspectives as shown. The four perspectives of the Balanced Scorecard are financial, EVA profitability growth, customer, differentiation, cost, quick response, operations, product development, demand management, order fulfilling, organizational, leadership, organizational learning, ability to change. Looking at the flow chart, we can very well understand that performance as assessed in one perspective supports performance in other areas, and therefore we need to consider all four perspectives in carrying out a complete internal analysis. Comparison standards. In order to arrive at some meaningful conclusion regarding strengths and weaknesses, the above analysis should be supported by appropriate standards for comparison, for example, industry norms, historical performance, and benchmarks. These are three commonly accepted comparison standards which are often found useful for internal analysis by the organizations. Industry norms. The industry norms compare the performance of an organization in the same industry or sector against a set of agreed performance indicators. Data on industry norms are widely available and can be found from several published sources. Using such data and comparing an organization against others in its industry helps the organization understand its true position. In case of the healthcare sector, such indicators can be mortality index, doctors per 100 beds, nurses per 100 beds, waiting time per inpatient's treatment, waiting time per outpatient treatment, patients' trust in doctors. The danger for industry in norms comparisons is that the whole industry may be performing badly and losing out competitively to other industries. Another problem with such comparisons may also arise as the boundaries of industries are coming down through competitive activity and industry convergence. For example, publishing houses are evolving into multiple media groups working around the infotainment industry. Moreover, talking of industry norms, it is an average indicator and organizations must endeavor in beating them rather meeting them. In order to understand how they have been doing so, it is always suggested that industry norms comparisons are supplemented with analysis on organizations' own historical performance. Historical comparisons. Historical comparisons look at the performance of an organization in relation to previous years in order to identify significant changes. Organizations must endeavor to improve their performance over time in order to remain competitive and overpower the performance of competitors. It must try to beat its own best in future, which would call for continuous improvement. However, in case of the historical comparison, it also entails scope for complacency since the organizations compare their rate of improvement over years with that of competitors, and it is possible that the latter may itself be operating at a relatively lower average. Such historical trends can even be misleading when they entail changes made on a very small base. Benchmarking. Benchmarking compares an organization's performance against best-in-class performance wherever that is found. Managers seek out the best examples of a particular practice in other organizations as part of an effort to improve the corresponding practice in their own organization. When the search for best practices is limited to competitors, the process is called competitive benchmarking. Other times, managers may seek out the best practices regardless of what industry they are in, called functional benchmarking. Benchmarking provides the motivation and the means many organizations need to seriously rethink how their organization perform certain tasks. A comprehensive internal analysis of an organization's strengths and weaknesses must, however, utilize all three types of comparison standards. For instance, an organization can study industry norms to assess where it stands in terms of number of complaints generated regarding defects during guarantee period of a product. Then it could benchmark the organization that is best at controlling the defects. Based on the benchmarking results, it could implement major new programs and track improvements in these programs over time using historical comparisons. SWOT analysis. Strengths. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. A SWOT analysis summarizes the key issues from the external environment and the internal capabilities of an organization, those which become critical for strategy development. The aim through this is to identify the extent to which the strengths and weaknesses are relevant to and capable of dealing with changes in the business environment. It also reflects whether there are opportunities to exploit further the competencies of the organization. How to perform a SWOT analysis in organizations? We know that SWOT analysis is assessing the internal as well as external environment of an organization. Internal Factor Evaluation Matrix. The Internal Factor Evaluation Matrix IFE is used as a strategic tool to evaluate the internal environment of the organizations. This tool evaluates the major strengths and weaknesses of the organization in the functional areas of a business. It also provides a basis for assessing the relationship among those areas. This involves 5 steps, which are: list key internal factors, assign weight to each factors, assign a rating to each factor, determine a weighted score, determine the total weighted score. Let us see how each step is to be performed to find out the IFE. List key internal factors. Around 10 or 20 key internal factors are to be identified, which determine the strengths and weaknesses for the organization. Then the listing of all the strengths and weaknesses is done. Assign weight to each factor. In this step, each factor is assigned weights ranging from 0.0, not so important, to 1.0, very important. These weights depict the relative importance to each factor for being successful in the industry. The weights are industry-based and the sum of all weights should be 1.0. Assign rating to each factor. A rating in the scale of 1 to 4 is assigned to each factor, and these are organization-based. The rating scale is as follows. 1 is equals to major weakness, 2 is equals to minor weakness, 3 is equals to minor strength, 4 is equals to major strength. Determine a weighted score. This step involves multiplying weight of each factor by its rating. Determine the total weight score. In this step, a sum of the weighted score of each variable is calculated. In IFE matrix, it is important to note that the total weighted score can be as low as 1.0 and as high as 4.0, and the average score should be 2.5. A score below 2.5 indicates a weak internal position, and a score above 2.5 indicates a strong internal position of the organization. Now let's summarize the chapter. Understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of an organization comes through the internal analysis. This is important for any organization in order to respond effectively to its environment, both micro and macro. Also, understanding them enables the organization to stretch its capabilities and create new opportunities for themselves. However, managers have to work hard in assessing the capabilities using frameworks like critical success factors and the value chain analysis, and analyzing them through quantitative or qualitative analysis. The end result goes as an important input for SWOT analysis.
We were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program. Course code MMPC-012, titled Strategic Management. Course coordinator Professor Neeti Agrawal. Voiceover by Chitra Gaur. Edited by Ashok Sharma. Program assisted by Tarannum Jaha. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.